Hi, everyone. How are we tonight? Welcome to another episode of Truth Bombs. So good to be here and to have everyone here. It's I don't know where you're at in the world, but here locally in Ohio, springtime is starting to pop up and it's just so rejuvenating. The warm weather feels good. Seeing all the animals come out and the birds feel good. And it just reminds us that regardless of what we've been through, regardless of what we're going through now, everything has a season, and you can take comfort in the fact that through some deep breaths and some patience and some time to yourself, you can pass any season and accept the new one with gratitude. So that's just my little tidbit of wisdom before we start tonight's show. Hi, Danny. Hi, Barbara. Thanks so much for joining. It's good to see everyone here. Hi, Greg. So good to see you. I miss everyone in Psychics Unite, but just a few more weeks and I should be back to the Monday night meetings. So tonight, I wanted to talk about what it means to trust your psychic abilities and to grow that trust and to build that faith, because I think that is one of the largest hurdles beyond acknowledging and accepting that you have abilities. One of the largest hurdles by far that any developing psychic will come across is building that trust and faith in themselves, in their abilities, and in the messages that they get from spirit. And I had more than one example. I had a couple examples over the last week where this kept popping up. And I thought, you know what? I think this is coming up for a reason. I want to share about this in my show and see, what comes up. And hopefully it helps some of you as well. So as always, highly encourage any questions that you might have throughout the show. Just pop them in the comments. I'm seeing them as they come through, and we can get to any questions that you have. So with that, hi, Gail. Hi, Amber. Hi, everyone. So good to see you. All right. So one of the things that we get hung up on is belief versus trust. And they are two different things. They come from the same place, but they're two different things, and they are both needed. So when we're talking about trusting our psychic abilities, we first want to take a look at clearly defining what is a belief, what does believing mean, versus what does trusting mean. And believing is that acceptance, that awareness, that acknowledgement. We've talked about stepping into our psychic abilities in previous shows, how to acknowledge, yes, I'm psychic. Yes, I'm getting messages. Yes, I'm starting to see them as they come through and practice with them. That's all building your belief. And the moment we start believing a little bit more, the moment that we start accepting and acknowledging our experiences, that's when things are really going to start to move for us. And we're going to start getting more and more messages. And that's all beautiful, but what good is a message if we're not quite sure what to do with it? Or if it scares us just enough that we're not quite ready to accept it as it comes through. What do we do with that? Sometimes that could lead to missed opportunity. Sometimes that could lead to an incorrect decision. And, all of these things, I'm sure if everyone took a moment right now, scanned their memory banks, they could find a scenario where they wish they had trusted their intuition. The message was clear, the feeling was clear, but they just couldn't reconcile taking that and running with it. And in the end, they could see clearer and understood why they should have maybe made a different decision. I can name several job changes that I took in my past that was made based on logic. The logic was, wow, this is a promotion, it has more responsibility, but it also has more money. And I ultimately wanted more financial security and more financial freedom. So this was a no-brainer, even though something inside of me was trying to tell me this doesn't feel right. You should take a knee. You should take a step back. You should really feel into this more, think into it less, and feel into it more. But I chose to ignore that because on the surface, everything seemed to align with what I was asking for. And of course, when I got into the job, or these jobs, there were a few. Literally from the first day that I jumped into it, it was mass chaos, mass stress, entire systems that broke down that were all of a sudden my inherited responsibility. And the unhappiness that all of this caused on my life in that time wasn't worth any money, wasn't worth any amount of money, let alone what little increase that I was getting. That is an example where our intuition can kick in for our highest and greatest good, but we may not be willing to look past that and accept it. And in the end, it can cause us more harm than good. I suffered from illness. This job I held for a couple of years. It just gets complicated, right? Certainly was not my highest vibing, happiest self in those moments. So that's why I'm so passionate about trying to build everyone up. If you're watching this show, if you are familiar with Psychics Tonight, chances are you believe somewhere that you're having psychic abilities or spiritual experiences, and you're working with spirit guides and you're getting messages. And whether that's just for fun for now, or whether you are looking to take it to the next level, we're always going to have to cross through this rite of passage in building our faith and trust in what we receive. So if belief is our acknowledgement, if belief is the way that we choose to show up and say, yes, I'm getting these messages. We may start meditating, right? Well, everyone knows what I feel about meditating, but whether you do or not, if you choose to, you may start meditating to get more messages, or you may decide to start tuning in during your days a little bit more to get those messages. So if that's our belief, and we have the belief, we know that we're getting stuff in. Now, what is faith? And how is that different? Well, faith is taking that belief from acknowledging that we're getting messages and strengthening and deepening our experiences to know that they are true, that they're founded in a solid foundation that you can act on, that they are something that you can take and trust. And trust, and that's really what we're talking about here is trust. So you're taking that belief and you're trusting that whatever the information is that comes through for you, you can act on it because you're trusting that it's coming from a place of highest and greatest good. You're trusting that regardless of what it looks like on the surface, the information that you're getting is for your benefit, right? We're looking to trust that the information is reliable so that we can act on it. And that doesn't always come right away. I mean, when you meet new people, you don't always trust them immediately. You have to take time. You have to build into that. And that's what we're going to be discussing a little bit tonight is how to build that trust, things that can get us from where we're at now, just believing and accepting, into actually trusting that the messages that we get are real and for our greatest good, right? Part of that is having faith. Faith is also important. Faith is different from trust and belief. Faith means that you don't necessarily have to see the source to know that it's there. A lot of us would have faith that we have spirit guides, right? We may not always get the luxury of seeing our spirit guides or hearing them, but we have faith that they're there, and that faith is built off of some of the experiences that we're believing in and we're learning to trust. So just a quick overview of the differences between belief, trust, and faith. It may sound simple, but I think a lot of times in the moment we get them confused and then we start using them interchangeably, and they do mean different things and build upon each other and support one another. So one of the things that we can do to start building our faith is have faith just for now. And what that means is, okay, so you are sitting here, you're having your experiences. You're not necessarily, or maybe you are, but you don't necessarily have to share with anyone what you're experiencing. You know, you just saw something, you know, you just heard something, or you know that feeling inside of you is there for a reason. It's palatable. You don't actually have to share with anyone what you're feeling, hearing, or seeing right at first. And along with having faith just for now, I would recommend don't overshare. And the reason why is I think, are more comfortable doing small mini tests in the moment and just observing, right? Okay, so if I'm getting the message to take High Street home instead of Fifth Avenue, let me see what happens if I do that. Okay. And then it could be that you read about an accident that was on Fifth later that night, or it could be that you just had a more pleasant drive on High Street. Or, and this is what kind of gets a little difficult, it could be that you don't understand why you took High Street, but you got the message and you did it anyway. Okay. Those are the reasons. That's how we start to build that faith and that trust in ourselves. Hi, Julie. Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for joining. So good to have you here. So the importance about the important thing, or the really beneficial thing, when we're sitting here alone inside of ourselves and we're getting these little moments of intuition and we're like, okay, no one has to know about this. So if I make a mistake or if I do something that I think is wrong, I'm the only one who will know about it. So let me play around with this. And I think that's a really, really big, part of all of this, is to be playful, especially in the beginning. You want to be aware and notice the things that come up when they come up, how they're feeling for you. And then just start making a note of how you integrate them and what the outcome is. What's going to happen is that you will have more and more opportunities to play with this, and you will have more and more examples and reasons to trust those messages as they come in. And it's just going to take a little time and some practice. So, have faith just in the moment, just for right now. And it doesn't have to be all the time. It can just be for the next hour. Just let yourself know, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to trust my intuition, or for the next hour, I'm going to trust my intuition. And then take that time to really check in and see what messages you get. And then test it. If within that hour you are looking to figure out what you want to do with your time, take a minute, ask yourself, what do I want to do in this moment? And the first thing that comes up, learn to trust it and go with it. If that's painting, if that's going for a walk, if that is fixing yourself some food, whatever that is, learn to trust it. And then, if it's okay, well, if I'm supposed to be painting, what do I want to paint? And then just continue to play on that for the next hour. And these little chunks of exercises will give you enough material to start learning about how your messages are received and what it feels like when you act on them, when you start to take on them. So just having faith for now in yourself and setting that intention with your spirit guides. Okay, guys, I'm here for the next 15 to 30 minutes, next 60 minutes for this day, whatever you choose. Please help me. I'm listening to you. Guide me. I want to build my faith and my trust in my abilities, and I want to develop my relationship with you. And so that kind of leads into my next point, Trust that your spirit guides are always acting in your best and highest good for your benefit. So if they, down the road, when you're more practiced, are warning you, you may want to consider not accepting that job. You may want to consider not buying that car or signing that contract or committing to that person. Then you are more comfortable with saying, listen, I really want this thing that's in front of me. I called it into my life and it's here and I feel like that I've won it now. But if something doesn't feel right, I've got to honor that, because I think a lot of bullets will be dodged actually in the end when we do that. Or when something doesn't look right. I mean, the opposite can be true too, right? If something doesn't look right to us and we're just like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but something in your heart's telling you, no, go for it. This is going to be good. You should trust it. You should do this. We should do this. Then you get that strength to be able to take that leap of faith. So I want to take a moment and point out one of the reasons why I think we sometimes really second guess what's going on, or we overthink what's going on, or we don't want to necessarily trust what's happening, is because we know that sometimes for our highest and greatest good, we may be put into a situation that's not the easiest. So it's easier to stay in the house that you're in instead of moving, but your guidance could be telling you, you have to move. You're going to have to move. Like, this is where you're getting pulled to. You might be resisting that because it's, change is scary. It's difficult. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, a lot of energy and money that you may not have in the very moment. But I will challenge to say, if you were to not take that opportunity in the moment as your intuition is encouraging you, the universe is probably going to continue to push harder and harder and harder until, if you resist long enough, it actually forces you into that change. So I know that a situation may not be our favorite because of the way it's being presented to us. But if we're at a point where we're really trusting our intuition and the messages that we receive, you may want to consider it anyway, because intuition, the universe is not going to set you up to watch you fail. It's just not going to happen. If you're trusting your intuition and you're getting this message and this is what's happening, the universe will conspire to create with you. Okay, it's conspiring for you. Okay, so if the house looks sketchy, or the business partner doesn't, has been flaky in the past, but you've just got this really strong, clear message to do it, then you have to know that regardless of what's happened in the past or how things appear now, you will be supported in this path. And whatever challenges might come up for you, they're not going to be as bad as you perceive them to be, because you are stronger than you think you are. The universe knows this, and you'll always be supported. Support will come out in the most beautiful, absurd, and coincidental ways possible. So just a little footnote. I got a little off topic there, but I wanted to kind of let you know that I recognize that sometimes our intuition steers us into what appears to be a very scary situation or decision, but there is more depth there than what we are honoring in that moment when we're wrapped up into our fear. And so that is another reason why we might choose to ignore our intuition or to deny honoring that decision because of our fear. Life can be scary. Humans are complex beings. We have a huge spectrum of emotions that I think is particularly unique to God's universe. And I think it is our diversity and those emotions and the experiences and the unique problems that Earth has that create such a rich and rewarding reincarnation experience. But with that comes a lot of uncertainty. And we do have to have a lot of faith. We have to be able to trust in ourselves and trust in our divine connection to spirit. And we sometimes just have to roll with the punches. We don't have the luxury of having that safe, secure, mapped out plan where all of the milestones are seen for distances away. We often are only going to see a few steps in front of us. For example, the last couple of weeks of Truth Bumps, Spirit hasn't revealed to me what I'm supposed to talk about until a few days beforehand. That wasn't planned. I just knew and had faith that I would show up and there would be a message there. And there always has been, because this is what I'm being asked to do. As long as I show up, the message will be there for me to present. So overcoming that fear of being unsupported, that fear of being alone, that comes back to your trust and your faith. And it all comes back to starting small. So in that moment where you're taking an hour and you're playing with your intuition, and you're giving yourself that freedom and that flexibility to receive insight on what to do, but honoring it, right? Whether that's to dance by yourself in your living room, or whether that is to go clean out a drawer, whatever that message is, play around with it and start small, because that's how we build. Everything in our lives are built on starting small. We can't lift a 300-pound dead weight unless we start with that 10, 15, 20-pound weight, right? So these are the practices in our psychic abilities where we just start and take micro bites. So having faith in yourself just for now, trusting that your spirit guides are on your side and they're always for your greatest good. And then, like I said a little bit ago, don't overshare at right now. It's really easy. It's really easy to talk ourselves out of what messages we get, how we perceive them, what decisions we're going to make with that. Very easy to second guess ourselves. And then because you're excited or because we're taught in a society not to trust ourselves, we're often going to our loved ones and saying, what do you think I should do? What's your opinion? And it's all well-meaning, but ultimately it takes away from your power to trust in yourself and your own perception of what's going on, right? So unless you are in a beautiful group of fellow psychics like Psychics Unite, I would recommend not to overshare in your experiences just for now. I think it's a fantastic idea to journal. You want to keep a record of what you're experiencing. You want to keep a record of how you feel in the moment. And you can even record your fear around these situations. All of that is fantastic. And it's healthy and beneficial. You can go back to it and you can double check it. But if you're just having coffee with an old friend, and you're like, yeah, I've been meditating and I'm starting to work with spirit guides and they're telling me to eat more green beans. It may be a little much for someone who's known you for a long time, but not this side of you, to take in that moment. So if you're already on the fence on whether to believe what's going on or not, they're definitely going to knock you over onto one side. Ingrid, same. And I think it's just because we're often so filled with love, and we know that this work can even draw us closer to love. And we want to share that love. At least this is for me. I'm like, I love this and I love me and I love you and let's all love together. And it can just be overwhelming for some people. So yeah, it's really hard not to overshare, which is one of the reasons why Psychics Unite is a fantastic place, but especially if you're just developing your things, your gifts, your abilities, and you're starting to sense things. It's a fantastic group of people that you can bounce ideas off of and share and relate to. Hi, Sandy. So good to have you here. Awesome. Thanks for stopping in. And then along those lines, if you don't participate with someone like Psychics Unite, talking to other psychics is a fantastic way to start deepening and growing into your psychic abilities. So having those moments where if you're finding a community locally, maybe it's a metaphysical shop, maybe it's a psychic that you've received readings from, someone that you can, again, bounce ideas off of or better understand what they experience, even a mentorship. All of those are fantastic resources for you to start really acknowledging, honoring, and deepening how messages are coming through for you. And not only understanding how messages are coming through for you, but how do they play out too when you either decide to act on them or not act? And I guess, both are in action, but you understand what I mean. Like, take the advice or don't take the advice. Notice all of that. Keep a record of it, almost like a scientific experimentation. See how it plays out for you at the end of each week. Kind of take a review and say, oh, these were the messages I got. These were the things that I was recommended to do, and these are the actions that I took, and then the outcomes. If you're ever in a place where you're just confused or you would like a stronger message on what you've just received, you can ask that from your guides. And I would encourage you, because they're not going to be able to help unless you ask them, because that's just a universal law. They're not going to intervene unless you're like, please help me. And I feel like they're just waiting there, or sitting there waiting for our requests for help. Just kind of saying, oh, I could help her. I could really help her, but I need her to ask for it. But if you get a message or an intuition and you think you know what it means, but you'd like some clarification, just ask them, hey, this is what I got. I need to clear a message. Please send that to me. And then keep your eyes open for that and trust when it comes. That message will, however it comes for you, will clarify and let you know one way or another whether you're on the right track. You can just ask them for a message, or you can ask them to send you a specific message. Although I will say that the more specific you are, though the more validating that it is, it may take more than a day just to get that lined up. It depends on how things are shifting in the energy fields for you and your guides. So yeah. Beyond those tips and steps, the next thing is just to practice. So just like any other habit that we like to try and get into, whether we're, or habit or hobby, right? So whether we're playing a new game and we are exercising and we're building up our muscles, whether we are trying our hands at a new job or a new skill, we're not going to be as strong in the beginning as we will after time. And our psychic abilities are no different. So when we're just starting off and we're learning to accept what we see and hear, when we're learning to agree, yes, I'm getting messages. Now, what do I do with it? You just want to practice with it daily. So when I mentioned earlier to set that time aside, for you to be able to make that agreement and say, okay, here for the next hour, I'm going to do whatever my intuition tells me to. Set time up for that weekly, whether that's 2 or 3 times a week, or whether that's just every morning on your way to work, or whatever that is. Now, I will say, your intuition will never, ever, ever suggest that you harm yourself or others. So if you are getting that message, that might be some shadow work coming up, right? And that's not to be judged. That's not a shameful thing. That just means that there is some work to the side that can be done as well as developing your psychic abilities. Because one of the things developing our psychic abilities asks of us is to work with the parts of ourselves that still need healing as well. And I also recognize that that is very scary sometimes. That's very intimidating, extremely rewarding and beneficial, but not always pleasant work. So I would encourage you that if you find that you could use some extra support in working with integrating, or what we call integrating your shadow self, or talking through some of the things that are coming up for you and triggering you. I'm a huge fan of professional counseling. I think that's a fantastic resource that can really benefit this work as well. And again, there's absolutely no shame in it. I think the way that our society treats mental health is boring. And I'm always a huge proponent for an advocate for mental health. I also, like I said earlier, recommend mentorship. I know Psychics Unite is starting a mentorship program. I myself, Jen Hodgson, and Scotty Rourke all offer mentorship to some degree in classes, and we would be happy to help guide you. Sometimes having someone to bounce ideas off of and to get those impressions, especially when you are managing both psychic abilities and clearing out some old stuff, it can really help put things in perspective in a place that doesn't make you feel judged or ashamed. So keep all those things in mind too if you're playing around with it, if you're setting time up for this stuff, and the messages, tend to be less light and loving or less playful, then there might just be some other work that needs to be done as well alongside that. So just keep that in mind too. Some of the things that you can do to practice your psychic abilities. When you're out and about and you are getting impressions, this can come through as a feeling. This can come through as a knowing. You can see things, obviously. There's four main clairs, 6 clairs altogether. Some of us taste, some of us smell, and they're all things that not everyone else can perceive in the same way. When you're out and about and you're getting these messages, it's a good idea to lean into them. And again, you can do it quietly. You don't have to share with anyone. It's just more about you learning what they feel like, how they come to you, and learning how this is going to unfold for you after you make a decision, right? So just noticing quietly to yourself and observing, what heightened senses am I getting right now? What am I picking up on? How's it coming through for me, and how's it pulling me? And start to entertain the idea of, what if I did honor this? What if I chose to take this into advisement and act on it? Our day, we can start to practice being observant and present in the messages that we get. Similarly, pay attention to those gut feelings. So if you usually make a left on your way to work, and for whatever the reason they're telling you, or you're getting the gut impression to make a right or to go straight or just to wait, consider that. How does that come across? What would happen if you were to honor this? Would it make you late? Would there be a consequence? Because we also have to take responsibility for our free will as well. But know that if there was a consequence or if we are late, maybe that was for our highest and greatest good. Maybe it was for a reason beyond what we can see in that moment, that kind of thing. If you're out and about and you're in a room with other people, or even just your living room with some housemates, scan the room, practice scanning the room. How does the energy feel on the other side of the room versus where you're at right here? How does it feel around that group of people versus this group of people? Start practicing reading energy and understanding how that energy can feel. You can palpate it with like your psychic sensors, right? It just takes a few seconds to tune in and just a little bit of quiet perception to be able to start feeling how the energy feels around in different pockets of the room. So that's another way that you can practice, is just by reading the room, practice scanning it a little bit and seeing what information comes up for you. So the other one too is honoring your unconscious voice. And I know that I've mentioned this in other shows, but it really is really important. So we, dream, and we like to dream journal. That is a way that we actually give an active voice to our unconsciousness. I personally sometimes struggle with dream journaling because I get so sleepy in the mornings and it's hard for me to wake up because I have been dreaming so deeply. But I try to make a note to at least jot down a few lines of what's going on. I've personally found that the more I journal for my dreams, the more active my abilities are and the more perception I receive. So play around with that a little bit. And then the other thing too is allow yourself some time during the day just to daydream and let your mind float and wander around. You can journal about that too, because it's through those moments where you're just kind of dazed off. I'm doing it now. And you're just dazed off and you're allowing your mind just to daydream. You can journal about that and give your unconsciousness a voice as well too. So play around with allowing it's almost like the opposite of meditation where you're just actively fantasizing or daydreaming. Maybe it's about a vacation you want to take. Maybe it's about an exercise you want to be able to do one day. Whatever that is, just be playful with it and stick around with it and see what, if you're just mindlessly and you're not controlling it, you're just mindlessly letting it wander and flow, seeing where it takes you and make a note of that. Hi, Candy. Nice to see you here. Kat, yes, the mentorship is going to be really exciting. We're just putting together the final touches, and I think over the next couple of weeks to a month, you'll hear more about it. Psychics Unite is starting to put together a newsletter. You can go to our website at psychicsunite.com to sign up for it, and we'll definitely be announcing it there as well as on our social media platforms. So, mentorship is definitely on our radar. And then in the light of being playful, play games. So you can practice your intuition or your psychic abilities with a deck of playing cards. If you've got someone there, have them shuffle the cards. Try and focus on the card that's on top of the deck, and then see what impressions and sensations you get. And you can try flipping it over and see what you got, whether it was, one color versus another, whether it was one suit over another, whether it was something between the number 2 and 5, whether it was between 7 and 10, however that comes across for you, just play with it. And the reason why I keep emphasizing however it comes across for you is because we're all different. And if there's one beautiful thing about psychic abilities, it's that rarely do two people get the same information the exact same way. We may get it in similar ways, but the exact same information in the same way is very unusual. won't say impossible because there's that whole twin connection. That's really cool. But I think it's unusual, which is why, like, especially if you're doing a missing persons case, it's fantastic to have more than one psychic um, on and helping pull and provide information, because someone might pick up a car, but someone might pick up the color of the car. Someone might pick up the kind of town that it's in, while others might pick up a street. So that's why I always love working with all my friends. I never once feel threatened or defensive with working with other people's abilities, because we're all so unique, and it's just a matter of learning how to read yourself and to trust that. Another game that you can play, and I've talked about this a couple times, is that body intuition check. So if you're trying to decide a fun way to do it, listen, I'm going to admit that I bring this back to food a lot because your girl likes food. So just stick with me on this. But another fun thing to do, if you can't figure out what you want to eat, because there's very little stake in the game, right? It's easier to start playing around and trusting with, what do I want to eat? If you've got two options, you can take one option and see how it sits with your body, and just sit there for a minute thinking about the one option and noticing how it feels. It doesn't have to feel good or bad. It doesn't have to feel high or low. It's more like your baseline, okay? And then once you get a pretty good idea of how that first option feels within your body, take the second option and put it into that place, and only think about the second option, and you will notice your energy shift. It'll either shift left or right, up or down, bigger or smaller. One, you want the more expansive, the option that feels higher vibrating, lighter, more fun. That's the option that your intuition is trying to tell you. Yes, go for the carrots, not the cupcake, or go for the cupcake, not the ice cream, whatever. I love snack foods. Okay, so yeah, just to kind of sum up what we covered tonight, there is a big difference between belief and fear. And between belief and trust and faith, actually. And so believing that we have abilities or believing that we're having experiences isn't quite enough. It's the first step and it's needed, but then it's time to take it to the next step and start having some trust or some faith in what you're experiencing, and how to start honoring that and accepting that in small pieces, so that when the big stuff comes up and it might be really intimidating, you're less likely to shy away from it. So yeah, definitely start small. It all comes back down to a consistent practice. You want to make deliberate time for this. And I always encourage journaling, whether you feel more comfortable doing this on a phone app, or whether you handwrite it or in a Word document on the computer, it doesn't matter. But just make a note of it so that you can refer back to it and see how it plays out for you. And then having that constant communication with your spirit guides is always going to help, and having that faith, that's going to strengthen your faith that they're there and they're always acting in your highest and best interest. So, any questions on the material tonight? That's about covers everything that I wanted to present tonight. So I'm just going to stick around for a little bit longer. If there are any questions, go ahead and paste those into the comment sections. And then don't forget, the rest of this week on Shadowhunters Paranormal Investigations and Events page on Facebook, we have some fantastic programming coming up. Tomorrow night on Wednesday is the Scotty Rourke show. And his show is always fantastic, filled with lively guests that have so much to share on spirituality as well as the paranormal. And then Thursday nights is the fantastic Sharon Moritz with her oracle card readings right here at the same time, same place. And Friday after that is Greg Koss with the Shadow Hour. So please return here as he has some amazing guests that talk about their experiences in paranormal investigation and all the places they have been. Really, really amazing conversation. And then our good friend, Jen Hodgson, her show, Simply Spirit, is on her Facebook page, Jen Hodgson, the psychic medium, every Sunday night, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. So thank you so much, Sharon. I hope everyone enjoyed tonight's show. Please take care. Have fun with your psychic abilities. If you have any questions or you want to bounce anything off of me as you experience it, I can be reached through Devin Evans Psychic Medium on Facebook or at devinevans.com. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you experience. And as always, check out the All Chapter Psychics Unite meeting every Monday night. If you go to Psychics Unite on Facebook, you'll find the meeting details posted there every week. And there's most likely a local chapter in your area too that is just starting to get back up into the swing of things now that COVID is starting to slowly but surely start to kind of phase out a little bit. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your support, and I love you all. Have an amazing week, and I will see you back here next week. Bye-bye.